We begin in the Middle East. Gaza's economy has been hit hard by the recent destruction of most of the smugglers' tunnels into Egypt's Sinai Peninsula. Now, the tunnels provided an economic lifeline to Gaza, which has spent the last 7 years under an Israeli blockade.
But Egypt says Islamist militants were using the tunnels to stage attacks in Sinai. VOA correspondent Scott Bobb went to Rafah crossing in the Gaza Strip to look at the tunnels and the people who depend on them. He talked about it with On Assignment's Rebecca Ward.
The tunnels were built after Israel imposed an economic blockade on Gaza following the takeover there by the Hamas militant group. The Egyptian government, the new government, is trying to restore order and law in the Sinai Peninsula, where there have been a lot of attacks in which more than 100 security forces, Egyptian security forces, have been killed. They say that the tunnels were being used to stage these attacks, both to ship arms and explosives and personnel. This is denied by Hamas, which controls the tunnels and controls Gaza.
We are not stupid to create a problem with a giant force like Egypt, and we do respect them, and we all the time look to them as the big brother.
Describe some of these tunnels. Did you actually go all the way through the tunnels?
I did not go through them, and in fact, most of the workers on the Gaza side do not go through all the way to Egypt. Some are so small that you basically almost have to crawl through them. They may have a rail on them so that a sled on a rail or just pulled by a rope on the dirt will come through with goods or dirt or construction materials. And then others are big enough to walk in and stand on. And some of the more elaborate ones and more expensive ones are wide enough to bring an actual vehicle through.
And the government in the Gaza Strip, Hamas, makes money by charging, I guess, a tariff for passing through these tunnels?
In the tunnel area, and they stretch over several kilometers, there will be officials there waiting, and when they see trucks come out with goods, they stop them and they assess the value and they charge a tax. So reportedly, the closure of the tunnels has eliminated something like 75% of Hamas's revenues. This may be an exaggeration, but that's what one report said.
Amir Arafat is shopping for his family. He has nothing better to do. Since he returned to Gaza 18 months ago with a degree in computer science from a U.S. university, he has not been able to find a job.
The economy is pretty tough around here. There's not room for new innovations, new technologies, because you don't know what tomorrow is going to bring.
The crisis worsened recently after Egyptian security forces destroyed hundreds of smuggling tunnels as part of a crackdown on militant attacks in the Sinai Peninsula. Unemployment was already 40% in Gaza, 50% for young people. Hamas, which governs Gaza, says the tunnel closures have thrown 20,000 more people out of work and cost the economy $400 million.
Why can't goods and supplies, food, go across from Egypt to Gaza through an overland route? Why is that nearly impossible?
That's a very interesting question, because even when Mohammed Morsi was president and he had, with his Muslim Brotherhood, he had very close ties with Hamas, the Rafah crossing, which is the main one between Egypt and Gaza, was never fully open to commerce. And a lot of people believe that either there are forces in the Egyptian government apparatus that do not want Hamas and Gaza to prosper too much. And then there's another that says that Egypt does not want to be responsible economically for Gaza, and that historically Gaza once was attached during the colonial era to Egypt. And of course now it's part of the Palestinian territories. And there are some who believe that there are fears that Israel would like Gaza to just merge with Egypt, and this would free the Israelis from having to deal with it.
What was it like for you as a journalist to cover these tunnels, these stories, talk to people in Gaza?
Most of them are very guarded. Up until recently, none that I talked to would even appear on camera. On my last trip, one of the workers just said he didn't care anymore, and he granted an interview on camera. An owner, appeared on camera, but with a kifraya, the shawl around just all of his face except for his eyes. Most of them, though, do not want to be on camera, and they will not use a real name because they fear reprisals, either from the authorities in Gaza or possibly from authorities in Egypt against their friends, acquaintances, or families that might be there.
Our thanks to VOA Middle East correspondent Scott Bobb. Now, Scott says some supplies and building materials are still getting through Israel, but he says it's not enough for the close to 2 million people in Gaza trying to rebuild after several wars with Israel.